All right, today is the day, and it is an Arete video. We are going to jump into something a little bit different today, just so that you don't get bored with the same old thing, and so that I don't get bored doing the same old thing. I had this idea to just jump in and work on the dashboard. Although that may seem a little bit premature, some of the things have to get done up there under the dash as well. Involved in this project is a little carbon fiber skinning. We've got that pretty much complete, and we're going to jump in and take a look at it. Let's go see. Now to start with, the main part of this dashboard was created out of the molds for the whole main section of the tub area. But we got a couple pieces that stick out a little too far for the style of dashboard I'm trying to create, so we're going to trim those off. Now the main piece of this dashboard is going to be this horizontal carbon fiber piece. We're going to create that out of a piece of expanded or extruded polystyrene foam. Shaved down, carved to shape, and then we're going to put some fiberglass on it and then skin it with carbon fiber. Now it fits right between these A-pillars that we have got completed now. Get it nice and measured so it is perfectly parallel to the horizon. I'm going to assemble a little leg in the middle that's going to come down and create an area for a touchscreen that will be our navigation and part of our instrumentation. Put that together with a couple of screws. They will come out with some of that foam in the near future. But assembling this stuff out of this foam and just using a rasp, as you've seen me do a couple of parts in the past, just rasp it down to get the main shape of it, and then some heavy 60-80 grit paper to sand it smooth. Although it's still not smooth enough for us to actually put fiberglass on and get a good smooth finished surface, so we're going to do a microsphere and epoxy slurry to coat this whole thing. Rub it into that sanded area really good, and then a little bit onto the smooth areas. And once this stuff is cured, we can go ahead and sand it down because it has some brush marks and other things. Get it sanded down, ready to receive some fiberglass. Now I will, of course, build the structure up out of fiberglass, some S-glass, and a couple of pieces of E-glass for some real hard contour areas with a twill fiber. About 2 layers of fiberglass on the big flat planes, and then around some of the curves, I've got about 3 layers just to get those curves softened up. And you'll notice that on these front faces, or the areas that you'll face into the cabin, they've got like a 3/8 radius curve on those. And then on the back side of some of those things, it's a sharp 90-degree curve, and you're going to see that we have to deal with that some way when we get to the carbon fiber. Anyway, we do not need to also cover the whole thing with fiberglass. I have cut this foam to be a little bit larger than what we need. On the top, we cover the whole thing because it's going to go under and hold part of that dash up. And on the bottom side, it's not going to extend out quite as far. But we'll get this thing finished up, fiberglassed. Go through, clean up our resin, try to get things as flat and smooth as possible. Get all the air out. And then when this thing's dry, you'll see that there are a couple areas, like here where it curves around, that it's kind of lifted up, leaves a little bit of a low spot there. And then we've got where we got some joints on the fabric, some low spots as well. One a little more serious on the top here. To fix that, we're going to mix up some body filler slurry, just the same slurry mix we've done before, just thickened up a little bit more so that it's self-supporting, it doesn't run or sag. Because we're going to work this thing and get nice and smooth, get our curves and radiuses as smooth and transitioning as beautifully as possible. Because what we end up with the finish here, after we sand this body filler off, is the surface we're going to get when we put our carbon fiber on. Now we've got a little bit of a problem. We're going to use a 2x2 twill carbon fiber fabric, and it has a little better wrap run direction. Not this way, but when you turn it at 45-degree bias, it rolls around the corners a little better. So we have to deal with this in the future when we cut our fabric out for that. I mentioned on the back side that there is a hard 90-degree turn going around the backside, and I want a good 1/2 inch wrap on the backside so that if you're like laying on the floor or something, you look up underneath there that you have an edge rather than just a sharp, flat piece of panel. Now to get this 90-degree turn, what I'm going to do is lay up the whole backside and let it cure and then sand it flat to the edge. So I have put a strip of carbon fiber cloth on the back, but in the corners I have laid in some chopped fiber, little pieces of carbon fiber. And between the two of those, once this thing cures, we can cut and sand the corners to a nice 90 degrees. Packing that chopped fiber into those corners. We'll also put some on the end caps and another little piece on the strip on the back, and let that all cure. Once that's cured, we will, as I mentioned, trim it down by hand, at least to the edge, and then sand it to a nice hard 90-degree surface. And when that surface is all done, the backside, the end caps, we will be able to put our main surface on, and that will just lap over to the corners. Now, as I mentioned before, with this cutting this fabric, we have to cut it at 45 degrees. So we'll roll off a little extra fabric that we need. And this is, of course, one reason why carbon fiber costs so much, is trying to come up with these solutions with it wrapping your wasting materials as well. Another thing you have a problem with is the fabric fraying, or strips of the fiber coming off in the middle of trying to laminate it. So I have just sprayed it with a fray check spray, kind of like industrial hairspray. And you spray that on, give it a couple of minutes to dry, and it binds all the fibers together. And then we take a straight edge and a little rotary cutter on a mat. That rotary cutter allows you to cut it, whereas the scissors may push the fibers as they go. You'll see me use actually both here, the rotary cutter to get that nice straight edge. And that fray stop will keep it from coming apart. I do have one little nip there in the end I need to clean off, get the scissors, that part I do. Set that aside, and then we're going to cut the other pieces that are going to go down the kind of like the wings or the horns of this thing. And we want those to be the pattern of the fabric kind of going off at like 30 degrees. And we're going to put the two fabrics and flip one of them over so that they have kind of a mirror image of each other, like you would do with veneer when you're doing woodworking. First piece to go on is that center section. The fray check part is wrapped around the top area there. We're going to put some resin on all the corners. Is one of the first things you do, help those corners soften up to make the transition to wrap around there. That 3/8 radius, like I said, will wrap really well now that we've got the bias at 45 degrees. And then we're just going to let the bottom edge, no fray check needed there. We're just letting it lay off the edge of the pattern, and we'll trim it down at that 45 degrees, sand the corners against the carbon fiber we did on the backside. No structural needed there. We have all our structure on that front face and those 3/8 radius. We'll get resin onto our pattern, then push the fabric down. Just keep working it. We have a couple of nips and tucks in there as well. They are fray checked so that they won't blend the fibers or break the fibers loose. Now that center section done, we have these wings or horns, we're going to call them. Put some resin on those to get those other pieces of carbon fiber on there. Now these are the two mirrored pieces, and they will lap over that center section. So you'll see that there is a little bit, we have double thickness on that lap joint, but you're going to see how I'm going to use some peel ply to put a little pressure on that to smooth it out, flatten them down as best we can. Now a lot of this carbon fiber is going to be underneath the trim of the leather trim of the dash, but we want to get it all as clean and tidy as we can. Then we're also going to put on some extra resin, really resin heavy, because we're going to be needing to sand a few coats of this resin off to smooth it out, sand the high resin off, keep adding coats. You're going to see me put down a couple of these coats on. Here's the peel ply coming off, and like I said, that was just to put the pressure on those joints. Now smooth them out a little bit better before we get to sanding them. Now this is the trim at those 90-degree joints. trim it with a knife, and then go back and sand those corners nice and sharp. Now here it is after the first sanding. We're going to put another layer of resin on. And I'm just going to go ahead and finish this video up without going through the 4 coats, as it does take a day or so for this thing to cure between each coat. So it takes a lot of days just sitting around waiting for these things to go through cures as you sand and finish them. But it will be more sanding and finishing to get it nice and perfect. We're going to fit it back in the car because we're going to use it as a form to create the top side or add some extensions onto our existing dashboard above. Now I've got a little block, a box and a block under there to get it held at a nice level position that it started in. And with it in place, we're going to start building that extension on the dash by the same method, using some extruded polystyrene foam. Put it in place, get it up tight to the original dash, mark it, and start trimming. Now on the corners out by the A-pillars, there are a couple of places where it rises up, and you'll see that little black foam block. That is the same size as some video camera monitors. They're going to go in each corner for rear view mirror video. So they make these little kind of winglets that go across the dash. They need to be tall enough, of course, to fit that camera monitor in, but I want to keep them low enough so that they don't interfere with any forward vision. That forward vision is blocked by the A-pillars anyway in that corner. We're also going to build the center of this dash area where the original fiberglass rises up there. We want it to rise up again and drop down onto our new carbon fiber part. Mark off with a Sharpie that piece and then bring it over, of course, and cut it with a knife. Take the rasp to it to start shaping it. Once I got it close, put some screws in it to tie it to that main piece that we've already got shaped. And then I can file and shape them together. Get it all squared up nicely. Once the rasping done, take some 60 grit sandpaper and sand the surfaces to get it nice and smooth. Now this part is going to be all under upholstery, so we don't need to finish it with the slurry and try to get it all nice and beautiful smooth. We just need the fiberglass structure. Almost finished there. And we'll try our little winglets that make the video monitor areas. And then the next thing to do once we got this foam all ready is to start putting some fiberglass on. Need some heavier fiberglass where the original fiberglass dashboard transitions to this foam. And then we'll just start laying on layers. Now most of the area you see in pink and then down the center are going to be an orange leather. So later on, I will, as the next part of this process, I will be putting a release ply down on top of all this and doing another fiberglass part, which will actually just be used for putting our leather onto, so we can wrap the leather around under the bottom sides, and then that will go on. The leather will cover, like I said, these little crescent winglets on the side that hold our monitors and the center section. That leather will come down and meet with our carbon fiber piece we just created as well. There will be some other orange leather under the carbon fiber. And then the little scalloped areas on the passenger and driver side will be in the cobalt blue of the exterior of the car. And of course on the driver's side, in that scalloped area, there will be a carbon fiber little nacelle that is actually acting for the gauge cluster. And as we get all this fiberglass on, like I said, 2 to 3 layers in here, 2 layers on the existing dashboard, and then 3 layers on that foam. This thing will be ready to move on to the next process, which is I need to turn this whole tub over and fiberglass on the bottom side of a lot of pieces. That's why we're doing this dash now, because when we turn it over for those other processes, we can also complete the bottom side of this dash extension we're creating. Now take that carbon fiber piece out. It was just in there to hold everything in place. A little release ply in there, get that out of the way. And then we're gonna trim off this extra fiberglass that we've got hanging here, getting ready for, I said, that process of fiberglassing the bottom side of all this. A little sanding, and then we will wrap the fiberglass on the bottom up around the front of the surface. But that will be another video doing part 2 of creating this whole dash assembly. Well, there it is. A little more finishing to go and the bottom side to do, but we are getting close on a dash in the car. That is our dashboard. It is coming along. But if some of you also remember a previous project where we did some forged carbon fiber skinning, I have been working on that to get it smoother and more beautiful. You will see that video coming up soon, or at least I'll show you that. I'll give you a sneak preview right now. And then I'll just also jump in, have you send you over to a video here. You can see that project being made. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Come back and see us again.